Hello, everyone. I'm Natalie Fremberg from the Palm Beach County Office of Resilience. Thank you for joining our final session of the day. We're going to start this session off with a keynote speech by Senator Bill Nelson. Bill Nelson is the current administrator of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA, and previous U.S. Senator from Florida. In Congress, he was a strong advocate for NASA's Earth science programs and worked to combat and mitigate the effects of climate change. Welcome, Senator. We can't hear the audio.
To the Southeast Florida Regional Climate Change Compact. Hi, everybody. Thank you to the Southeast Florida Regional Climate Change Compact. Thank you for the invitation. And hopefully we're going to be together in person next year. In the meantime, Floridians know that addressing climate change can't wait another year, and the sea levels are obviously rising. By November the 1st, forecasters actually ran out of Atlantic storm names for the second consecutive year. Just the other week, it was reported that South Florida could experience 12 times as many days where it feels like 105 degrees by the year 2050. So inaction is not an option. This summit is about saving our state and our planet. And NASA's involved big time in this because we're the point of the spear on climate change. Because at NASA, we always look upward and push out to the cosmos to find the spacecraft that then very delicately, very precisely measure the change that is going on. Central to our mission at NASA is protecting this planet. Last time I checked, this planet is the only one that we have. We can't mitigate the climate change unless we measure it and understand it, and that's NASA's expertise. Our Earth System Observatory, which is a combination of a number of spacecraft, these new ones that we're going to put up, 5, they are going to give us a 3D view of the Earth and the next generation data, all compiled so that we see very precisely what's happening in the climate change. And it helps us, not only Florida, but indeed the world, understand the very substantial changes that are occurring. Our mission is clear: to better prepare and protect families, businesses, communities, indeed all of humankind. And that's why NASA is exploring a new concept. We're going to create a mission control, just like you've seen on spacecraft that are launched, mission control. We're going to use a mission control center, and it's going to be for climate change, in addition to continuing it for every launch and mission. For us to be able to have local and state, as well as all the agencies of government, to come into a room, including virtually, and get all of the data from NASA. We're going to create that in mission control. And it'll ensure decision makers can better respond to disasters and develop strategies to confront climate change. Because combating climate change is an all hands on deck effort. This year, I know that many high school and college students are attending this year's summit, and their generation understands that we face this existential threat, and they're counting on us to act. We're not going to buck this responsibility to address climate change. We're going to do everything that we can to set this next generation up for success. Our decisions will determine the fate of our planet. It'll determine the fate of Florida. So let's protect it. Let's preserve it for this generation and all the generations that follow. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Senator. That was a very inspiring message for all of us, especially our youth. We will be hearing from some local youth in our next session, Mobilizing Millions, Voices of the Youth and Calls for Action. In this panel, youth from across the compact share their perspectives on climate change, including personalized stories and solutions. If you have any questions or comments for our youth, please add them in the Q&A panel on the right side of the conference platform. Next, I'll be handing it over to our panel moderator, Yasmin Laik. Yasmin is the Project Program Coordinator for Broward County's Natural Resources Division. She recently earned her Master's of Science degree focused on marine resources management from Texas A&M University Galveston campus and has experience teaching our youth about environmental issues and stewardship. Thank you for moderating this panel today, Yasmin.
Thank you. Welcome and thank you for joining us this afternoon. During this segment, we will hear about the youth's perspectives on climate change. The Earth's average temperature has increased about 1.5 degrees Celsius in the past 100 years. It doesn't sound like much, but has resulted in sea level rise, warmer ocean temperatures, and longer, more intense droughts which threaten crops, wildlife, and freshwater supplies. Climate change affects more than temperature. It affects everyone, of every race, ethnicity, gender, political affiliation, and age. The world is home to 1.8 billion young people between the ages of 10 to 24, the largest generation of youth in history. Young people are increasingly aware of the challenges and risks presented by the climate crisis and of the opportunity to achieve sustainable development brought by a solution to climate change. Young people's unprecedented mobilization around the world show the massive power they possess to hold decision makers accountable. Their message is clear. The older generation has failed, and it is the young who will pay in full with their very futures. Today, the youth is here to address their concerns with local, state, and federal politicians, elected officials, and the residents in their communities. Through their stories, we hope you attain a better understanding of how climate change is not only affecting the population as a whole, but how it's affecting people as individuals.
Hi, I'm Mariam Morabi, and I am a senior in Miami at Terra Environmental Research Institute. I am also the communications director of the $5 Project, which is a youth-led international climate organization that is fighting the effects of climate change on marginalized communities. Today, I wanted to talk about what I did to start in climate change, just to show how simple and easy it is to get your start and to learn more. Over quarantine, when it was first beginning, I had a friend who was starting this organization, the $5 Project, and she had wanted her friends to join and help. So I did, and I knew absolutely nothing then. Like, I didn't know anything what was happening. But as I joined, I learned more. We were able to host multiple educational webinars, including one that was in the Middle East with students there because they don't get that much education on climate change, as well as beach cleanups here in Miami. It's super simple to get your start. You can just learn on your own. You can start reading books, reading articles, watching movies, listening to podcasts, simple things throughout your day. And then you can move on to talking about it with people in your community, your friends, and your family. You can take a super simple course called AP Environmental Science, or just any courses that wherever you are that might offer this knowledge on climate change. Join a community organization, talk with other people, and then share your knowledge. It's something very important for us to do, for us to share our knowledge here. And if I can do it, so can you. So get your start today, guys.
Good afternoon. My name is Nina Bowen, and I'm representing Monroe County. I was born in Key West, and boating around the Keys with my family is a regular part of life from growing up. A vivid memory that paints my story on passion and protection in the wildlife happened when I was 8 years old on one of our boating trips. One day, we took our boat out to Snipes Key, a beach 30 miles off of where we live. We got there and I hopped off our boat and ducked into the mangroves to explore. Through the brush, I came across a secluded part of a small stream that led through the roots and branches and back out into the Gulf. It was deep enough to swim, and the mangroves filtered the hot sun, creating a shady oasis. Water was filled with snapper and crabs and hundreds of different species of fish. Birds perched upon branches above my head, a rest stop for their long journey where they found bugs to eat and other birds to chat with. I waded into the water and closed my eyes and just listened. I listened to the wind, the ocean, and the birds sing. It was euphoric and pure, and at that moment, I will never forget it, because when I sat still enough and stopped thinking for just a second, I became part of that ecosystem. I didn't want to leave my mangrove hideaway, and so I didn't. I collected shells and swung from the highest trees I could find. I built sandcastles that were as tall as I was, and I talked to the birds like they could talk back. I stayed hidden far from the other boats and families until the sun turned dark red. When it was time to go back, I couldn't wait to tell about the stories that I had had in the day, but more importantly, when we would come back. I was young, like I said, but I knew even then this was something that I wanted to protect. I wanted everyone to take the time to experience a new place so they too could experience the natural beauty of a place like this. I was 8 when I fell in love with my secret spot on Snipes Key, and I'm 16 now. What will it look like another 8 years or 16? Will it be there at all? When Hurricane Irma hit in the Keys in 2017, that little spot was changed forever. In the Keys, with our low elevation and position along the hurricane track, we are essentially at a geographical forefront for changes brought by warming climates. The place I continued to go to for years since my first visit was almost unrecognizable. Trees had fallen into the stream, the birds were gone, and there weren't any leaves to shade the fish, and so they left too. My heart broke. There wasn't much I could do other than let nature take its course, and so it made it into something new. Our marine environment doesn't only face threats like hurricanes and tropical storms, they are also affected by air pollution, plastic waste, and algae blooms. When our annual school STEM fair came around, that's when I came up with a project that could target a hot topic in Florida, algae blooms. I built 2 machines that collected agricultural runoff from sugarcane and tested them for their nitrates and phosphates. Afterward, I hosted my own controlled algal bloom and monitored their results. I knew with this information and data that I had collected that I could make a difference. When I finished my project after states, I didn't want to stop making a change and stop being an advocate for ecosystems, and so my story didn't end there. Sea level rises are real for us. Red tide and blue-green algae blooms killing our fish and economies are real for us. Severe storms are real for us. We are uniquely positioned, and it falls to us to sound the alarms loud and clear. It's up to us. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Guadalupe Cortez, and I'm a senior at Pahokee High School. I'm a Climate Ready ambassador on behalf of FAU, and I care about climate change because my community is one amongst the most vulnerable to extreme weather and other environmental hazards. A lake near me is Lake Okeechobee, which has been affected by blue-green algae. To educate the young, I decided to make a storybook about what it is and some possible solutions. I wrote this book on the perspective of our favorite body of water, Lake Okeechobee. The title of the storybook is No Good Blue-Green Algae. Help me help you. Next slide, please. Hi, I'm Lake Okeechobee. Next slide. I'm an important water supply to ecosystems. Next slide, please. I love helping my community by providing a place to hang out, a livable place for fish and other wildlife to live, as well as giving water to the people, farms, and environment around me. Next slide, please. I'm currently affected by these harmful algae, and it makes me sick and not able to provide for you guys. Not being able to provide for you guys affects the well-being of the people around me and jobs due to some people being in charge of operating the marina, but not being able to do so because of the drawbacks of being near this toxic area. This is bad for the economy because this is where we get some of our water to be able to drink it. Next slide, please. Algae is harmful to me and it could hurt the animals and humans exposed to me. I love my community and it can cause you to feel sick too. You could possibly have stomach pain, vomit, diarrhea, rashes, a sore throat, or even feel dizzy. Next slide, please. But what causes the bloom of blue-green algae in me? Well, the excess liquid that flows over the land agricultural content is one culprit. Another is the chemicals from our water supply system, as well as excess nutrients and pollution. In this in particular, it is because the water is stuck and unable to circulate properly. Next slide, please. How can you be more community resilient? Next slide. We should all come together to think of some possible solutions. Next slide. I have an idea. Next. There are various solutions that can help me feel better. You can help take off the algae with machines with the help of professional adults. Together, we could increase oxygen by having circulation movement, such as a solar-powered water floating fountain. Even doing some simple tasks, such as making sure we don't get rid of organic materials by putting them in the water. Because when it decays in the water, it causes a nutrient pollution, causing our water to smell bad and look cloudy. This is bad for me. We could also plant native plants around the edges of the lake. That way it acts as a protector for our shorelines, and it'll look very pretty too. Next slide. I think there are more ways you can assist me before this happens again. Some ways we can prevent this from happening to me, our beloved lake, is to have better water quality standards. This way we can fix out pre-existing factors to make sure it doesn't happen again. By making sure these harmful algae do not occur again, you're making sure other hazardous situations do not take place. Next slide, please. Thank you for helping me. These resilient acts make you heroes. I hope you guys enjoyed the storybook.
Hi, my name is Daisy Lee, and I am a sophomore at Dreyfus School of the Arts. During quarantine, I turned on the TV to witness something that completely transformed my perspective. I tuned in with millions of Americans to watch the first crewed launch from US soil since the space shuttle retired 9 years ago. But what moved me the most was seeing the dock and hatch opening of the SpaceX Dragon capsule to the International Space Station. I saw pure human emotions pouring out from each embrace as the astronauts were welcomed on board. And from then on, I set my visions on becoming an astronaut. That very same day, I fell into YouTube and Wikipedia rabbit holes of all things astronaut, from Chris Hadfield eating a floating taco to Karen Nyberg demonstrating how she washes her hair in 0G. Now, that probably left you wondering as to why I'm speaking at a climate panel today. It is because I can attribute my burgeoning climate advocacy and community action to my initial space frenzy. From all the astronaut interviews that I have binge watched, I found one thing they all had in common. They said they left with a newfound perspective of the Earth, that it's stunning, that it's small, and that it's fragile. This cognitive shift when astronauts view the Earth from space is called the overview effect. And hearing the astronauts talk about their experiences, I also realized how fragile our Earth is, a small blue-green glowing orb floating through the void of space. From afar, all known life inhabits on that tiny speck. Our spaceship Earth is the only place known to harbor life in the universe, and it is our only life support system. But climate change puts it in danger. With rising global temperatures, elevating sea levels, and increasing extreme weather events, our spaceship is being threatened and sabotaged by its own passengers. The Earth is one thing we all share in common. We're all thriving on this delicate planet. The novelty and preciousness of our one and only Earth are what brings me here. So we must act now with urgency. There is no time to waste. Our Earth, our only home, is worth saving. Because if our Earth is one day rendered uninhabitable, where will you go? Where will we go? Where will your children go? Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jenny Spalkman. I'm a resident of Broward County, and I'm a senior from American Heritage School. My story basically began when I was old enough to realize that not every community was the same. I'm African American and I live in an ethnic and multicultural community. Not many homes, but many apartments are built here. The funny fact is that every day I travel to my school, which is in a predominantly white neighborhood, and I can literally see the world change around me. I leave the sites of old and weathered apartments and a plethora of dead trees to see humongous green lawns and new large houses. You can actually feel the temperature difference in both areas. I participate in a Heat Island citizen science project and learn how concrete and construction will make places hotter due to the fact that concrete cannot absorb heat like nature can. So yes, it is hotter in my neighborhood. And yes, that is troublesome. My community has to keep its air conditioners on all day. And in a place of low income and fixed income citizens, how can they pay for these high electricity bills? But the sad truth is that these differences are no fault of its inhabitants. However, recently I've noticed there has been more construction in my neighborhood, high-rise apartments and other amenities. One example that always sticks in my mind is the construction of a brand new Starbucks in my area. It makes me think, how on earth will people in this area who are low income or on fixed incomes afford this amenity? Which immediately lets me know that it is not for us. We all know the seas are rising. Those beach homes are no longer in high demand as they once were. Too much damage from the incoming salt water and the increasing number of hurricanes every year. Historically, ethnic communities are placed inland, assumably because they were once deemed undesirable. However, now inland communities are on elevated land, and this is a commodity that the affluent on the beach plan to capitalize on. They are saving themselves from the direct effects of climate change, and I completely agree. I do not blame them. Yet they do not realize the communities they are ignoring and displacing. That's my issue. This unfairness and almost complete disregard for the effects of climate change has on different communities and our reactions to it. We must end this cycle and actually move towards solving this issue. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope I open your eyes to a different side of this issue.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is James Bozeman. I was raised in Jacksonville, Florida, where I now reside in the Florida Keys as a junior at Key West High School. Today, I've been given the luxury to represent Monroe County and talk about an ever-growing problem. This is a problem I've experienced firsthand and I've witnessed firsthand. Temperatures rising is something we've heard 1,000 times. I feel like we've heard it so many times that we've kind of toned it out. But my question is, if we've heard it so many times, why are we still not doing anything about it? So often we overlook the damages of the slow rising heat wave that is climate change. But if you take the time to look around you, you'll notice that animal migration patterns are changing. Droughts are appearing where they usually shouldn't be, and that there are forest fires happening more common than ever before. I remember back in 2017, where I was living in Jacksonville, Florida, there was a forest fire that had just caught in the southernmost Georgia point, and it had scorched over 100,000 acres of forest in just 2 days. The smoke and ash traveled so far that it arrived to my city, and the ash was so concentrated that if you had a prior respiratory illness, you would have to either wear a mask or be forced to stay inside for that period of time. And I had always wondered myself, how did it get this bad? It never appeared to me how a problem that we saw coming for so long could progress to the way it is now. Yes, forest fires are common. They've never been this common. The heat and droughts make the conditions for potential forest fire at its apex. We've all experienced the climate. If you've traveled, you've felt different regions containing different heat. I've heard many individuals of the older generation talk about how they have never felt summers this hot or winters this cold. Summers have gotten so bad in some states that heat strokes are a common problem. This has always made me ponder, what are we doing about it? How are we going to fix it? Can we fix it? And how can I, as an individual, help? Thank you very much.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Asha. I'm in 11th grade and I live in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I am the president and founder of my school's environmental club. I am also serve on several different climate organizations. This speech is addressed to the politicians at this summit. While I acknowledge that some of you are working hard to tackle climate change, the majority of politicians aren't. And I'm here to tell you that people are dying and people are crying loud, painful cries as a result of climate change, but all you could think about is money. Well, let me tell you something. Money won't matter if our planet is destroyed. We can't eat money. Even though we are living in a climate crisis, politicians continue to tell us empty promises to do something better. I am sick and tired of hearing politicians promise to do something beneficial for the environment, but not actually do it. My generation doesn't have time for politicians' empty promises. Your constituents don't have time for your empty promises, and the world doesn't have time for your empty promises. We need to understand that climate change isn't a problem for the distant future. It's a problem for right now. With wildfires, record amounts of extreme heat days, more droughts, sea level rise, and so many other extreme weather events worsened by climate change, we know that climate change is already here. And we need you, the politicians, to take action that science and justice demands. I'm scared of climate change. Your constituents are scared of climate change. And I hope, and the world is scared of climate change. I hope after this summit, not only do you make bold promises to help the environment, but you actually follow through with them. I demand that you all take climate action now. Not tomorrow, no, not next month, not next year, now. If you take action to help limit warming to 1.5 Celsius, my generation, future generations, and the world will always be thankful for you. But if you don't help limit warming to 1.5 Celsius, my generation, future generations, and the world will never forgive you. So I ask you, what are you going to do to tackle climate change?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gabriella, and I am a 10th grader at Coral Gables Senior High, and I am representing Miami-Dade County. I'm a climate speaker as well as a climate policy advocate. So I grew up in Miami my whole life, and I remember biking around places like Matheson Park with my dad and snorkeling in Key West. My childhood was filled with nature, and from a young age, I started to see what sea level rise was doing to South Florida. One year, in the midst of fearfully witnessing king tide in Matheson Park, I met a park ranger who has worked at Matheson for over 30 years. And he told me that over the years, king tide has gotten increasingly worse, and this park is suffering the consequences. For example, with their infrastructure, it's always getting flooded. As I witnessed these changes in my community, I started to become educated and stunned at the baffling statistics surrounding climate change. The evidence is everywhere. I mean, Miami is ground zero for the climate crisis. And when I first really understood the impacts of the climate crisis, I felt this rush of anxiety and fear. It was a horrible feeling, but I knew I had to feel this sense of urgency if I were going to take this issue seriously. The only way to combat that hopelessness is to be part of the solution. So my question to all of you is, what is it going to take for that aha moment for all of you out there? Thank you.
Hello again. My name is Asher, and this is my call to action. Declare a climate emergency and use your funding to help the environment. I just want to emphasize that declaring a climate emergency is just the first step to tackling climate change, and we need to take a lot more steps and a lot bolder steps to tackle climate change. If we limit warming to 1.5 Celsius, we will still face catastrophic events fueled by climate change. Today, we're at 1.1 Celsius, and we're still experiencing record heat waves, flooding, wildfires, sea level rise, etc. However, if we limit warming to 1.5 Celsius, scientists say we will be able to avoid the worst effects of climate change and avoid the irreversible effects of climate change. So I'm demanding today that you declare a climate emergency for my generation, that you declare a climate emergency for America, and that you declare a climate emergency for the world. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to go off a bit of what Asher says when he talks about climate emergencies. And climate emergencies are a way that elected officials make their promises and set goals. But within those goals, there needs to be policy. Policy is a necessary ingredient in creating systematic, large-scale change. And why do we need large-scale change when it comes to the climate crisis? Well, because the climate crisis, let's be honest, it's a huge problem and it's hard to combat it. So I actually have something I want to show you guys. This is a book called, I don't know if you can see it. Well, there you go. It's called Drawdown, and it's a book full of solutions. And this book has 80 solutions towards the climate crisis. 80. There's not just one solution to the climate crisis. But what do all these solutions have in common? Well, they need the right policies to flourish. I mean, for example, right now in Miami-Dade County Public Schools, where I go to school, there is currently the Clean Energy Task Force, which is a sustainability plan for Miami-Dade County, which is currently being proposed. And this policy basically lays out a plan, and it allows solutions. It allows people to enact solutions. So climate policy, it's necessary to enact change at scale. We need to be able to enact it locally, federally. For example, let's say carbon pricing, which would transition the economy to a clean energy economy, is a federal policy that we should be enacting and supporting. Climate policy is what enables these 80 solutions to flourish, and it includes renewable energy. Thank you.
So, hi, it's Janice again. The last thing I want to leave you with is to be aware how this is affecting everyone. Invest in climate solutions. Invest in educating communities on what's actually going on. Build with the plan and not against it. Don't act in haste or with selfish intent. Only think about money and your future puts my community and others like it in danger. And it also puts the youth, us on this panel, and the many more all over the world in critical danger. I'm asking you to please listen to us. Take heed and empathize with this situation. Climate change is our problem, and we will need everyone to solve it. Thank you. Have a good day.
Hi, it's me again. And my call to action is, well, there are many ways to communicate with people. Personally, I wrote a book to demonstrate this, but there are many ways to share your story, to do what you can to inform yourself and to educate others.
Hi. So I just wanted to go off of what I said earlier. So there are many ways that you guys can help, that people can do themselves. It's not only the big things like installing solar panels, which has become a lot more accessible now. So that is something that everyone should look into. Simple things like reusable water bottles, paper straws, reusable utensils, those are all very beneficial solutions to solving the climate crisis. Planting trees, that's going to help decrease our carbon dioxide. Palm oil is one of the main causes of deforestation, especially in Asia. And for us to decrease that is for us to not buy any products that contain unsustainable palm oil. So there's actually an app called the Cheyenne Mountain app, I believe. And that app can help you scan the barcode of a product and it'll tell you whether it has palm oil in it or not. Carpooling, public transportation, biking, walking, those are all ways to help decrease our carbon emissions, as well as energy efficient appliances. And things that you guys can do as communities or as families is just going to beach cleanups, hosting beach cleanups, or even going just to your local zoo. My zoo, for example, we have a program for teenagers called the Conservation Teen Scientist, where teenagers are able to inform the public about the animals, as well as tell the patrons about conservation efforts that they can do to help affect what's going on with the animals, as well as climate change. Also, throughout Florida, there is the Clio Institute, which is a climate fighting organization, and they're all throughout Florida, and you can join their meetings and their efforts to help stop the climate crisis. And probably the simplest and easiest thing that anyone can do is just going through their spam email and deleting their emails. It sounds like, how would this even help solve climate change? But spam emails take up space in the cloud, basically, and that space is releasing carbon emissions. So the more spam emails you get, the more space it's taking up. So just sitting down, unsubscribing to those random emails that you get sent, and just deleting emails that you don't need is a great way to help reduce your carbon emissions.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nina Bowen. I spoke a little bit earlier. So we know consequences come from a warming climate are a result of human actions, but more importantly, they're a result of human inaction, human apathy. None of these stories are new ones. The generations before us knew, and even the generations before them knew. Maybe there was a distraction in stopping others from connecting the dots, or just feeling like they couldn't do it, or perhaps just a lack of organization and energy for the cause. Either way, the time for inaction is past. It's not enough to post our comments online or raise issues and awareness with our friends. This requires much more than that. And grown-ups aren't the only ones that can get involved. Take a group who is passionate to make a difference in a community, and all it takes is to start a movement. And so we did. Look at what Team Blue's done for Key West High School. It's an idea that I started as a Marine Conservation Club, where students who wanted to do more than just talk about it could. I wanted to give everyone an equal opportunity with hands-on learning experience that are fun, but also help our environment in the process. I thought maybe we'd have 15 to 17 members, and within the first week of Team Blue's inception, we were up 87 students and are still growing rapidly. We have organized beach cleanups. We are reducing plastic waste with our blue water bottle project. It's right there. And we're looking forward to our collaborations with Moat Marine, Reef Relief, and a couple other really great organizations near us, and for many years to come. I say that even if you can't get involved physically, you can still support local movements like Team Blue or student at your local high school environment clubs, or even big organizations like Reef Relief. Do a beach cleanup, sponsor an event, or even just bring your own bag to the grocery store and buy less plastic. Pressuring your local leaders for cleaner solutions is an option. Small steps like this can lead to giant leaps for our environment. Team Blue has shown me what a big impact Generation Z is going to have, not just in the Keys or in Florida, but globally. This is real for us. We are uniquely positioned, and it falls to us to sound the alarm loud and clear. It's up to us. Thank you.
Hello, I'm James Bozeman. You heard me talk earlier, and I wanted to talk about my solution for climate change. My call to action is a plea. I hear politicians claiming they're going to go green, that they're going to reduce carbon emissions, but not many of them have truly kept their promise. And some of you have, and that's great. Keep it up. But it's not about your promises that I'm looking for. It's about actions. I ask why politicians aren't using their influence to influence others to do better. Why aren't politicians challenging other politicians and their path of doing better for the climate? Climate change is all of our burden. None of us are exempt of it. The elite get affected by it just as much as the poor do. My call to action is your call to action. For the people in the power, for people who have an audience, it's your time to expand and spread our message. You represent us, and this is why you were elected. I believe you have the power to make a big change by just holding your peers accountable. I beseech you to make this change. If I, as a 16-year-old, can make this speech and touch even a few hearts, imagine what you could do with your platform and your influence. It's not an easy task. The hardest choices require the strongest wills, and it may not be done in a day. It may not be done in my or your lifetime. But I believe that we can still make a change. Even if it's a small step, still a step in the right direction. I may not see a world full or free of global dilemma, but to know that there may just be a day where we can accomplish this dream motivates me to keep going. I am privileged to even be able to speak to here in front of you To see a panel full of youth who think just as I do gives me that hope. Does it give you that hope too? As I come close to the end of my speech, I've done all I can do. It's your move. So with my last words, I'll ask you, what are you going to do better?
Thank you. Now that we've come to the end of this segment, we would like to express our warmest thanks to all the panelists and the attendees. We will now take the last few moments to take any questions you have for our panelists. Okay. So here is a question. This generation has arguably the biggest burden placed upon their shoulders from any previous generation as it relates to our challenges in climate and the challenges that are ahead. Their question to you all is, are you still hopeful for the future? Go ahead, Nina.
Personally, I do think that there is a lot of opportunity, especially in my day and age. I think right now, as Mr. Bill said earlier, that now all of these options and all of these issues that are coming onto the generation now, I think it's our opportunity to make a difference. So tonight, my speech was to dedicate that to those people and Generation Z and for the next ones to come, because we are the people that are going to make a difference. And I think that we're going to be able to pretty soon, to be honest. It's just a matter of motivation, really. Thank you.
Go ahead, James.
I personally believe yes, but I feel like the hope can't just be from my generation. For even the generations before me, which is what my speech was reaching out for, we need everybody to be on board with this. We need every generation to have hope, because we are only as strong as our weakest link. And for the people in charge right now, if they have the same hope, they can make the change and put this train into motion, and my generation can be the one to push it to its destination. That's what I feel like.
Thank you. And Gabby?
Well, I just wanted to add on to what James said. I mean, it's all about cooperation. It can't only just be us, because the people in charge, the elected officials, they work for us. They should be hearing our voices. They should be listening and considering what we have to say. And I think that is one of the most important aspects of it. There needs to be a cooperation between us. And that's kind of what my speech wanted to emphasize today through climate policy.
Thank you. Okay, so we have another question. The question is, can we address climate change without social justice? So in other words, how can we ensure that climate change solutions are equal, fair, and transparent? Go ahead, Gabby.
I think that's an awesome point. I mean, you can't have a climate movement without climate justice. And like Janice said, with climate gentrification, that is a big deal. And we need to, put legislation in place to protect those people who have their houses and their communities and neighborhoods being gentrified. So there is no climate movement without climate justice. And we need to lift up those voices who might have been unheard until now. So yeah, that is definitely one of the main points that needs to be emphasized in the climate movement.
Thank you. Asher?
Yeah, just to piggy off what Gabby said, I think we cannot have climate action and we can't help stop climate change without social justice. We need to make sure that the climate policies that are being put in place are accessible, and we need to make sure that things to help the environment that people could do are accessible. And we know that the U.S. Department of Housing does not require AC units. So what I'm saying here is, as we're seeing the effects of climate change, we know that the effects are hurting marginalized communities the most, because as we're seeing more extreme heat days, people in marginalized communities may not have AC in their house. So they have limited options of what to do. So we really need not just climate action, but we need climate justice.
Janice? Thank you, Asher.
So of course, social justice goes with climate change. not only can you just care for the plant, we have to care for everything that's on it as well. That's the whole problem with this is the cooperation between the ecosystems and humans. And sadly, humans always hurt humans and humans always hurt the earth. So we have to solve both problems at the same time because you cannot have one without the other.
Thank you. So we do have another question. How can your communities create more pressure on decision makers in the public and private sector, such as voter mobilization, boycotts, media campaigns, lawsuits, citizen science, etc.? Lupe?
I feel like we have to emphasize on educating the youth, which is kind of why I wrote my book, primarily based on my community, which is Pahokee, Florida. We had recently been affected by blue-green algae, which is really why I really wanted to emphasize educating the youth, because I feel like that's where we have to start, increasing on forth.
Thank you. Daisy?
Yeah, so we really have to start promoting more conversation around the topic of climate change and just informing everyone around you to act upon it is the most important component.
Thank you. Nina?
Personally, I think holding more group conversations is really important. I think that especially people in the youth and day and age, I think there should be more talk. And I think that I know that in my city where I live in Key West, Florida, we do have this movement called the Safer Cleaner Ships movement. And that was one thing where a community got together. They decided that they didn't want those cruise ships coming into our island and destroying our waters and our ecosystems. And they were able to stop those cruise ships for a set amount of time. I think they just came back like last week. But I think it takes more of like a group that's passionate. And I think that having summits like these does bring people together. I think that even having more group conversation, I think is probably a really important thing, especially in like our day and age, and especially with the youth in general.
Thank you. James?
I personally feel like holding the representatives who are going for office more accountable, meaning as our generation comes into age and we are able to start voting, I feel like we should let them know that we will start to vote more so heavy on the side of climate change, because I noticed that's not really a big take for a lot of politicians. They're focusing on other issues. If we start showing that we are strongly invested into what we stand for, and that we will not vote for someone unless they do agree to our terms of helping the climate, because at the end of the day, a lot of their policies don't matter unless they have helped the world that they're trying to better.
Gabby?
I just wanted to add off about what everyone said. I think that we need more legislation and we need overwhelming support for this legislation. So we need youth, we need elected officials, we need big organizations, and we need conversation around it. I mean, there is legislation out there, climate legislation, but it needs to be brought up, it needs to be heard, and it needs to be implemented. So I think that's the main point.
Thanks. Asher?
I'm picking off what James said. I think that if you're an adult on this call and you're of voting age, you need to vote. Please, please, please vote for my generation. And when you're voting, I want you to consider what is the politician you're voting for? It's climate policy. And if you don't think that's bold enough, then do not vote for them. And if the politician that's representing you right now is not bold enough, then when the next election comes around, vote them out. Thanks.
Thank you. So another question. How can we be more effective in motivating the parents of your generation, regardless of political party affiliation, to vote with their ballots and dollars in support of meaningful policy change now? James.
Have the youth participate in activities such as environmental groups or Nina's Team Blue, because parents are heavily influenced by their children. if as a child that they are invested in this effort, parents will look at that, and they, as a human being, want to please their child. They are going to want to do that. And regardless of your political affiliation, you more than likely have love for your child, and you are going to want to do what you know betters them. If you know your child is heavily in love with climate, like fixing it, then they're probably going to work based off of that.
Janice?
So my take on dealing with parents, no matter political sides, you have to treat it like you're a politician. So find the issues that they care about, which, you know, depends on region, socioeconomic status, education level, all that kind of things, right? So when I was certified as a climate speaker, that was one of the things we had to learn. You have to know your audience and know what they care for. You do that through surveys and things like that. But if you find, because what's beautiful about, well, not beautiful, what's horrible about climate change is that it affects almost every aspect of our lives. So it's not hard, it's not difficult to find something that someone will care about. So like for children, I usually use like animals. You don't want to see turtles wrapped in plastic or on rope and things like that, right? Whereas with some older generations, you could bring in the economy. So you have to be specific. You have to have a target audience. And I feel like if you put all those people together, you're actually gonna get something done.
Gabby?
Bouncing off of what Janice said, I think that, yeah, targeting your audience and making sure that you're able, because climate change is connected with everything, like everything. I mean, like everything. And then also, I think creating environmental curriculums within schools and teaching kids from a young age about the environment and just simply the science of it. Because at the end of the day, it's not political. It can get political, but it is not. It's science and it's pure evidence. And we definitely need to emphasize that, because once kids start learning about this, once they have it in their curriculum, once they have it just a simple environmental science class, they can start kind of talking to their parents, because I think that parents learn a lot from kids. I mean, I teach my parents a lot. So I think that having environmental curriculums and making sure that they're getting educated from a young age and becoming aware can really help in terms of getting their parents on board.
Thank you. Nina?
It's funny because Gabriella just took the words right out of my mouth. I absolutely 100% agree. I think growing up, especially in my community, I don't think there was enough talk about climate change. I don't think that my school had enough in the curriculum, especially. I didn't know much about it. And, growing up, I was an honor student. So I was in those classes that should target like more heavy subjects. And I think not even just that, but I think all those classes should have a roundabout like speaking topic on important things like climate change. I got involved solely because I read about this thing online, not because I heard people talking about it, not because my teachers told me about it. I started my project because I knew that there was something wrong and I saw it in front of my eyes. And I think if we teach children when they are small and implement it into their lives, because children are influenced by everything. Little kids are sponges, and parents, they influence their kids a ton, just as much as kids do and influence their parents. They teach them lessons, but kids teach themselves too. And I know that I kind of saw it myself. And I think that if, like Gabriella said, if we implement that at a young age, I think it is so important, because kids are sponges. They will take that all up and they will carry that with their day-to-day life. They will pick up that piece of garbage they see on the floor. They will make a difference. But all it takes is, that thought, that little inspection, that feeling in the back of their head that they know that something's wrong and they need to make a change. I definitely know that things like that are super important and are implemented in education, especially.
Thank you. Okay, so I think this might be one of our last questions. What is the awareness like in schools, like with the staff, with your peers and other students? Kind of what is it like in school? Daisy?
I actually learned about climate change from school. I believe it was like when I was in elementary school. And I live in a very socially aware community. So that really helped because like at home, my parents never really mentioned or brought up these topics into discussion because they probably thought I was too young. However, kids can understand these things. And we definitely should promote more discussions surrounding climate change and climate awareness in more and more communities in the future to come.
James?
I feel like it's there, but it's not enough. For example, whenever I started taking AP Environmental, I did not personally understand what it was going to be about because they really never tell you about the effects of climate change that much in school unless you particularly choose a class that's designated to that part. Now, with the ever-growing new clubs such as Team Blue or the AP Environmental, I mean the Environmental Club, it's starting to get out there, which is, I would say, positive progress, but it's not where it should be. Unless you actively like search it out, you're more than likely not going to find it. You'll hear of it, but it's not going to be high on your radar. So I do feel like there needs to be more talk of it and introduced to you as any other elective is.
Lupe?
Personally, my community is not as aware, and the way I found out about it was really through social media platforms. So because of this, I try to take the initiative for my community, which is why I host local cleanups at nearby trailer parks. But that's really why I want to create this awareness for my community so that it will increase and more people can take the initiative within my community and elsewhere.
Thank you. Gabby?
I just want to say, like, my experience with schools is that unless you have the rare chance of taking an AP environmental class or maybe joining the Earth Club, which generally doesn't even provide that much information, there's not much. There isn't. And that's the point. Counties, school districts have not implemented environmental curriculums or just overall encouraged anything. And it's disappointing. And I think that's why we're all so disappointed. And we need to like create sustainability plans within districts. So it's not there. We need an environmental curriculum. We need to make sure that we not only create awareness, but we allow opportunities for students to get involved. And I think that that is lacking. I mean, I'm in, I think, the third largest school county in the district, and I haven't seen much. So unless stuff is proposed, like it was proposed with this Clean Energy Task Force, which is a sustainability plan, I think that we need more of those, and we need them to be implemented urgently because this issue is not going anywhere. It's here, it's now, and we're on a time bomb. We need to get going. So I think that that's super important.
Janice?
So I'm gonna say that I'm extremely lucky, right? I first got involved in this when I was in 6th grade, so that was 6 years ago. I was introduced to it by my mom. So growing up, this is a topic in the household. But I also was lucky enough to go through 3 different types of schools. So I went through public school, charter schools, and private school, right? And the differences, you can really see them. So since I knew about climate change through all of those 3 different schools, the conversations I had were not the same. So in public school, not many knew. It was not a thing, right? But in charter school, they start to implement it into the curriculum a little bit, but only in one class in earth science, right? And the kids there, they were aware, but they were not active on it. But now in private school, it's more diverse. It's a lot of freedom with the curriculum and everything like that. So we have multiple climate change clubs. We have climate change club, marine biology, conservation club. We have recycling. The school, we use recycled products for pretty much everything. We have gardening clubs, things like that. We have environmental centers. It's quite amazing. I'm quite blessed to be in a situation like that. But and the kids, the students, we are all aware. We're all active in it. Like for Gen Cleo, I have a bunch of classmates who are also in that, and other like Broward Citizens Climate lobby, like things like that. So by me able to see the difference in all three of them, I know exactly what what everybody needs in a sense, for at least in the school setting.
Daisy?
So I'm just going back to the point on how like climate change is still treated as if it was controversial and not a fact. In my science textbooks, especially my environmental science textbooks, I haven't seen climate change as a bolded word, a vocabulary word that's specifically emphasized by the curriculum. So we can definitely advocate to the school district, to our school board representatives about this issue.
Asher?
So I personally go to a small private school, and before I came, there was no environmental club. So I started the first environmental club, and unfortunately at my school, I don't think that there's a lot of environmentalisms were not reflected, and people don't really know about climate change. So since I've been at my school since 9th grade, I've really worked hard. I created the first and only, unfortunately, only environmental club, and I recently just got my school to have vegan lunch options, and I got environmentalism included in the biology curriculum, like climate change included in the biology curriculum. But I think every school has that, or at least most schools I think have that one kid that's really pushing for climate action, but I don't think that there's enough people pushing for it. So I think we need to educate people and educate our peers and just people in general, and inspire them to take action to help the environment.
Thank you. Gabby?
I just wanted to add one little comment. As Janice said, I'm also part of Gen Cleo, and she has peers around her that are part of Gen Cleo too. But I go to public school, Coral Gables Senior High, and I love that school, and I've actually started to create climate awareness in it. But I don't know anyone else who's involved in Gen Cleo in my school. And that kind of goes to show you. I mean, it depends from school to school, but especially in public schools, there's not that much awareness. And public school counties are the places where you can create a standardized environmental curriculum. And it's something that we should already have, and we don't. And it's only now just being proposed and still being debated on. And as Daisy said, it's still controversial. And it's like, we're kind of tired of this. So I think it depends from school to school, but in public schools, I think it's especially lacking.
Nina?
I actually have a similar story to a lot of our people here tonight. I jumped from school to school growing up. I never really thought that like I was really in the right place or the education wasn't right. And so I was in a charter, a public and a private growing up. And I was always that weird kid that didn't really know what they were doing or playing around or whatever. I was in La La Land, as they call it. And I remember one day I was sitting there going through my textbook, just flipping through the pages, and I saw that climate change page, but it was one page. It was one page. And it was a little earth, and it was a little pour in the middle, and it was saying something about possible emissions from CO2. And that was like all I had read. And that was the one page, and we didn't talk about it once for the rest of the year, especially in public school. And I'm fortunate enough, like I said, that I am in a public school now today in high school at the Key West High School here in Florida. I do have teachers that are very motivated, and I have teachers who support me a ton, especially through my STEM fair projects. You can kind of see, inverted right there. I have my teacher, and she is amazing. She has supported through me, like the last 3 years I've worked on this project, and she has been nothing but supportive because she wants to see for the best for me. And we do have those conversations. And my school has an environmental science club, as James mentioned, and I noticed some cool cleanups and stuff like that. I know that they really started getting busy this year, but our marine science club, the one that I am the founder of this year, used to have a club, and it hasn't been active for the last 9 years. So it was not touched. It was in the dust, it was in the books, and it was sitting on the floor, and nobody touched it. And so I had created this project over the summer to reinstate that Marine Science Club and call it Team Blue. And I wanted everybody to get involved, and we became one big community movement. And I think that because of that, I think more people are getting involved. And I think if you provide students, especially in a public school, with a bigger opportunity to be able to get involved with stuff like that and make it more financially accessible, I think, especially because public school gets that funding, I think that it would really help students just kind of get involved. I know students that I know, I am able to have those public conversations now. And with our Blue Water Bottle project, we are trying to reduce plastic emissions, especially in the Florida Keys with those bottle caps that are killing our turtles at the turtle hospital up in, I think it's Marathon. So we are replacing those with aluminum bottles, and we are selling those in local businesses. And we're trying to get everybody involved as best as they can. And now we're able to have those conversations, and we're able to do these beach cleanups, and we're able to do these snorkel cleanups because people care and they want to get involved. And I think if we make that more financially accessible in other schools and not just the public one like mine with motivated teachers, I think that this will become pretty soon a global conversation. I think everybody will get involved. And I know that people, it takes, like Asher said, one motivated kid to make a difference. Asher was that motivated kid. Gabriella was that motivated kid. Miriam was that motivated kid. Like, we all here care and we want to see a difference. And I think that can be done if it's just financially accessible and there's more opportunity and there's more people who want to talk about it. And that won't happen until people talk about it. So I guess I'm trailing on here, but I think most importantly is to make it financially accessible, get people involved, and just create an opportunity in more of like a public service and kind of speaking about it, I think is important.
Thank you, Nina. So I just want to thank you all again. I'm going to pass it back to Natalie to close us out.
Thank you, Yasmin, and to all of our panelists for your stories and perspectives today. It's great to have such a strong youth representation at this event, both in the panel and in the audience. Next, I'll be handing it off to Patrick Rutter, Assistant County Administrator for Palm Beach County, for some closing remarks. Take it away, Patrick.
And thanks, Natalie, and thank all of you. You know, what a cool session at the end there to close the day out, but hear from our future leaders. I think it was Gabriella who said, drop the line, teaching our parents. And I think I'd expand that to teaching the adults, and hearing the voices of our future leaders is really, really interesting and engaging. Hope we all learn something from it, we're able to take something from it. So thank all of you for participating, coming in after school today and spending some time with us. We all appreciate it. Been a packed day today. Want to thank again. It's some great speakers: Brenda Mallory, Daniel Blackman, Bill Nelson. Had some state legislators, our county mayors. Had some great panels today too. We focused on financial investment, green infrastructure, resilient capital infrastructure. I think at the end of the day, we all see where resiliency crosses so many sectors, and hoping to show that, express that, and help us learn each time. Wanted to spend just a second to thank, first of all, our sponsors, and want to run through them really quickly: Jacobs Engineering Group, Volo Foundation, FPL, WSP USA Inc., City of West Palm Beach, Coomans and Cedarburg, Hazen and Sawyer, EcoAdapt, Miami-Dade County, Wood Environmental Infrastructure Solutions, and then the Nature Conservancy. It's been, really appreciate your support in this. It's been a journey getting here, just kind of selfishly from the Palm Beach County perspective. Last year we paused the summit with COVID, came back this year, then we had to pivot again. We were planning to do it in person. Delta came along, we had to make a decision. So it's been quite a journey getting here. We appreciate the support of the summit planning team working with us through these past 2 years now and getting to this point. So very important, really appreciate everything. Thanks for your support. A couple people wanted to just call out specifically Ed Chase from the county, Palm Beach County's Intergovernmental Affairs, our director. He was so instrumental and helpful finding and getting on board so many of the speakers you heard today and tomorrow. A big thank you to him. Ed Carr from our Channel 20, helping shoot our video with our commissioners, our 1-minute videos that you're seeing today and tomorrow. Thank him so much. Our county leaders who presented today and our county commissioners, appreciate the time they're spending with us and participating in this great event. Mentioned the summit planning team. Thank you again. Get to see it. If you don't know, this is an all-year endeavor. It ramps up. We get to see the end result here. So much work goes into it to get to this point. And thank you all for your time. Our county's Office of Resilience, I want to call out Megan Houston specifically, our director. Thank you for her hard work. Jake Leach and Natalie Frenberg, you've seen them moderating panels, being around today. put a lot of work into this, hoping to bring this stuff home. Last but not least, want to bring up Paragon Events, our event planner. Been so helpful. I know I've emailed them 2 or 3 times today myself, trying to get stuff aligned. So really helps, especially moving to a virtual event like this, having such great support. So thank you all. Thank you for being here. Megan had slipped me a note. We had 718 people registered. So that's just a tremendous number. Really excited. High number of students. I think we're somewhere over 200 in students as well. So really excited about the numbers we've got. Thank you for hanging in there with us today. We'll see you back tomorrow morning at 10. We're going to open with Palm Beach County's Vice Mayor.